And all I'm going to say, Alex, to you is get Kawhi ready. Because, come on, Jonas. Last night, that Lakers-Portland game, and let's talk about, here's number one. The Lakers can't make any threes.
Yeah.
And they can't defend the three. And then they play a Portland Trailblazers team, ready? That was giving up an average of 123 points in the bubble, in those 8 bubble games. And the Lakers scored 30 points below what they've given up to everybody else in game 1 of the first round series, the 8th seed against the number 1 seed. And then think about the Lakers. I picked the Lakers to win this series, Jonas.
I did too.
Because I don't believe in Portland. I just don't. But after watching them, the same thing that happened in the bubble happened in this first playoff game. Lakers can't make threes. They shot 15%. The Lakers can't stop the three. How are you going to win in this man's NBA? And I don't know. I'll tell you straight up. LeBron wants to be Magic Johnson and dish the ball and pass it to everybody. He ain't passing to Kareem and James Worthy. He's passing to Caruso and KCP. And those guys at the end is not going to get it done. And Danny Green might have been Danny Invisible. Where was he? What? It is so ugly. Thank you, Kawhi. So ugly, and everybody can poo-poo it, discount it, act like nothing's going on here. But when I look at that team, other than the top heavy, and then here we go again, Anthony Davis, 2 points in the fourth quarter. How many times have we seen this movie? Jonas, what did you see?
You know what this is? Well, first things first, this whole use these same old tired narratives that people want to do about, don't worry about it. They're going to be fine. It was just one game. Of course, anybody can get got in the first game. Yep. Man, all of those narratives that worked in normal playoff situations, you can go ahead and leave those at the front door. Cut that crap out. This is a whole different environment and a whole different deal. And what we've seen so far is the Lakers have not been a very good team. Offensively, they were dreadful. I think last night was the first time. It was the lowest amount of points Portland scored and still won a game all year long. Think about that. The lowest amount of points. It's not like Portland played great. Portland didn't play that great.
No, they didn't.
It's not like they looked outstanding. If I were a Laker fan, this is what's concerning. And tell me if you started to get the same vibe, because I'm with you. I picked the Lakers to win this series, and a lot of that was not so much due to the fact that, they've got LeBron and Anthony Davis, because I actually think there are more options offensively, and there's more options available to Portland than there is to the Lakers, because it feels like the Lakers have to work really hard to get points. And Portland, sometimes it just looks effortless because they have so many different players that can hit shots. But this is where I found it most alarming. My biggest issue with Portland going into this series was fatigue. Man, it's not like they look great against Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's got their best players not a part of this bubble experience.
They could have easily lost that game to Brooklyn. Easily.
Totally
and not
agree.
Even made the playoffs.
Yeah, and once they won that game against Brooklyn, they looked exhausted. They completely gassed, completely exhausted. The last time I've seen a team look that tired and gassed was Golden State after they lost to Toronto last year. They looked almost relieved, if anything, because they were so worn down and so exhausted. And I got a similar vibe from Portland because they were on such a stretch to try and even get an opportunity to play into the postseason that they looked fatigued once they got there. Then they get to the Memphis game, and that game wore them down. And my big thought was, all right, well, look, maybe they'll come out early, they'll have a burst, but later in the game, over time, they're going to wear down because they've just played too much. And guess what happened? Right when the Lakers were about to wear them down and took a lead, and I think it was Kyle Kuzma made a shot, and the Lakers had like a 5 or a 6 point lead.
Yep, I remember it.
I think Portland called a timeout and came out and stepped on the effing gas, and they were the better team down the stretch. That's the part that concerns me if I'm a Laker fan. The fact that this team completely gassed, had more juice and more gas in the engine than you did, and you're the one supposedly just ramping up for the postseason, not trying to really gun it too hard because they're thinking about bigger games. That, to me, is problematic.
And here's the other thing. The numbers are just horrific. The Lakers offensively, the Blazers' opponents had scored at least 100 in 37 straight games, except the Lakers only managed 93. 93. The Lakers overall, 5 for 32 from three-point. 5 for 32 in this man's NBA. And Kyle Kuzma was 5 for 14. Anthony Davis scored 28 points, had 11. That sounds good until you realize he shot 8 for 24 and only had 6 points in the last 7 minutes of the game. I just cannot get over how bad it was and what a bad start. And then here's the worst part of all. This whole narrative about LeBron James not being able to play because the fans and it's not the same or something. Do we have sound from LeBron James after this debacle?
Like I continue to say, this is different. This is different in an aspect of just, we're in a bubble with no fans. But as far as me being locked in on the game plan, that doesn't change, not one bit. Me going out and making plays, playing at a high level to try to help our team win, that was the same. And nothing changes from that, so it's the same to me.
So why even bring up the fan thing that is different? The bubble's been going on for now, right? And Jonas, when guys first start playing basketball in the schoolyard, are there any fans out there? Does that stop you from playing? Crazy. I don't even understand that. Does it probably sound weird, feel weird? I get that. But to use that to bring that up as if that's the reason that they lost or they scored 93 points, it's funny because Portland played in the same arena with no fans. Yeah. Yet they won the game.
And you could argue Portland's got a better home court advantage than the Lakers do. That's a real thing. Portland's home court advantage is outstanding. It's one of the tops in the league. So you would think a team that would rely on home court advantage or the crowd, that would be the team that would be impacted the most. It's more built in. It's just excuses. It's constantly never good enough. And we've talked about it before. I don't know of another player in the history, and I'm going to go further than just the NBA. I don't know of another player in the history of sports who's gotten more say and more input into the things around them than LeBron James.
He's the GM. He's the worst general manager in the NBA.
It's crazy. And this idea that, the fans aren't there and, it's got how about this? How about you just lost? You got outplayed, and you got outplayed down the stretch. Why not let's take that approach? It's like when he showed up after the series against the Golden State Warriors, and he decides with a cast on. He decides after that game he's going to throw a cast on, like he's Roy Munson off Kingpin. All of a sudden he's got a rubber hand on after the final game of the series. And yet here's the problem: you've got people in the media that continue to wash his balls, continue to push this stuff out there. There's nothing wrong with saying he's the second greatest player in the history of basketball. He's a phenomenal, outstanding talent, and he's done amazing things for the game. What also comes along with that is the guy has stunk at times, and he's had bad performances, or his team have had bad performances in the finals, and he's got a bad finals record. Both those things can be true, yet unfortunately, there are people in this business that don't want to talk about it like that. They just don't want to.
Nope, and here's the problem why he's always had a hard time getting other star players to come play with him, because when LeBron wins, he's the GOAT. Of course. When LeBron loses, you're the scapegoat. That's just how it is. And this is the problem with, other than Anthony Davis, who's a part of their, agency, right? So that's the different part. But trying to get other people to come, it just hasn't worked. And the other thing you brought up about Portland and the home court, it's kind of unfair to give them so much credit. You have two things to do in Portland. You can either come in from out of the rain or go to a Blazers game. Those are your only two options.
You know what? You know what my favorite part of doing this show with you is? You've got a Rolodex of one-liners, and you literally just sorted to P and said, "Oh, Portland. I can use one on Portland now," because they don't have any other professional sports team. So what are you supposed to do? It's that or the Timbers, the soccer
that's
team.
That's about it, right?
We got to cut it out with the excuses. Everybody's dealing with the same crap.
Yes.
Everybody's dealing with the same problems. Everybody's dealing with the same lack of a crowd and all of that stuff. We got to stop. And you and I discussed it a week ago when he threw out this whole, there's stuff going on.
Right.
There's
without
stuff
saying
going on.
what it was, right? Off the court.
You know what? I can't handle it. That's the person on Facebook who just writes the post that says, just when you think you know someone, this happens.
And they leave it there.
Yeah, this is what you do. You unfriend that person, and in a private message, you tell them to kiss your ass because you're not falling and you're not taking the bait for the pity party. And that's all that was. I'm telling you, man, after what I saw last night, I still think the Lakers are going to win this series. But I think we need to leave this whole, it's just one game, don't worry about it. All that crap's got to go. I think this is more of an indictment of a brand new season as opposed to a continuation of the previous one.
Jonas, I'm sure people want to chime in. Lakers
right.
down 1-0, but it's more, as you talked about earlier, more than just losing the game one. Those things happen. The numbers are bad, the numbers for the Lakers, and that's the part that I think people should be concerned about.
Don't they feel when you watch him play? Because LeBron, like we said, first ballot Hall of Famer, second best player. If you want to argue the first, that somebody can do that, that's fine. Of all time, Anthony Davis, great player. Don't they just feel offensively a little outdated? Don't they? It feels like 12 years ago this would have been a great team. In today's NBA, if you can't hit shots from behind the arc, if you're not a good shooting team. Oh, and we didn't even mention the missed free throws, which has been a problem.
Right.
Which has been a problem for them all year. That's been an issue.
And LeBron missed 4 in a row.
Yes,
I mean, awful.
Yeah.
You just can't have that.
Terrible. We do have some people who want to chime in here on Fox Sports Radio. Let's go to South Carolina where Nick is listening here on FSR. Nick, what's happening?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
Going on?
So no excuses for last night. It's on LeBron 80%, 80, 20%. But LeBron and Lakers will be fine. This is, I think, such a typical media overreaction without really looking at the history.
Wait. The bubble play, so the last 9 games by the Lakers, they've been awful. Why is that trend not taken seriously, and you're just going to overlook that they have not played well since they arrived in the bubble?
Yeah, why can't we look at that history? That's the history we should be looking at. It's the most recent, and it's the most the one you can actually use in comparison to the game last night because all these games in the bubble are nothing like anything we've ever seen before. So that history's out the window to me.
Right, but I'm just typically saying any LeBron-led team against a solid opponent, he's always used game one as a feel-out, possibly game two. He's always passing in game one, not as aggressive, and then typically around game 2 or 3, he becomes much more aggressive. He did it with the Bulls in 2011. I know this is going far back, but again, it's who he is. He's always done that. He's got the range of Magic, Karl Malone,
Nick,
Jordan.
I got to discount. You're grasping for straws talking about 2011. Dude, look at the roster that they have. Did you see who was on the court last night? Caruso and KCP and Danny Green. He's talking. He wants to be. Let me say he wants to feel it out. Let me pass the ball to these guys. These guys will knock down shots at the end. And you got a guy in Anthony Davis with 2 points in the fourth quarter, and he wants to be a facilitator. What are you talking about?
Rob, where were you in 2011? What were you doing?
I can't even imagine. I probably was in prison in Mexico.
I think I was there with you.
I think I'm moving to Mexico.
Yeah, I think I was there with you. Trust me, best days of my life. All right, so there is that was Nick in South Carolina. Let's go to Dre in Michigan here on Fox Sports Radio. Dre, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
What's
Good,
happening?
Dre.
Hey, look, first of all, I'm a big LeBron fan, but I'm an objective fan. To me, I think they're going to win the series, but I don't see them winning the championship.
See, you know what? Dre, hold on. Dre, I'll let you finish your point. Hold on one second.
Okay.
See, I think that's an honest take. When you look at them long term, the team doesn't look strong enough. And go ahead, Dre. I agree with that take. I picked them to win this series.
Right. Well, my point is LeBron has to realize it's not about how he wants to play. It's about how he has to play for them to win. And AD, he got to get out this. I don't want to play at the 5 spot. That's where you will have your advantage over any other team is if he played the 5. And then the rest of the team, I mean, just show up, just hit something, and they'll do better. But yeah, and the coach got to make some more changes too. So I just don't see them as being a complete team. It's a lot of complete teams out there in this tournament right now, and the Lakers now won.
Thanks, Trey.
Yeah, we appreciate the call. Here's the other thing. I don't want to hear one person go into the holster and say, well, if they would have had Avery Bradley last night.
I know.
Kiss my ass.
I'm with
Stop.
you on that.
Stop. They didn't lose that game because there was no Avery Bradley. Stop. They lost that game. Defensively, if you can hold Portland to 100 points, you'll take that. If you can hold that offense to 100 points, you'll take that. It's the problem offensively. And LeBron had a great game, and he was great. And Anthony Davis was good for a half.
And they didn't win.
But what's your third pitch? Like if this covering baseball, if you're a starting pitcher, if you only have 2 pitches, you know what that makes you? A reliever. Like
Yep.
you gotta have more, and it just feels like they don't have more offensively. Tony's in Pennsylvania listening here on Fox Sports Radio. Tony, what's happening?
Hey, yes, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yes, sir.
I got a comment about LeBron. I think the bubble is really exposing his game. You see a lot of guys out there now, really good off the dribble, can shoot the ball. LeBron really doesn't have a game in between the three-point line and the layup. You see guys on his back that are shorter than him. He can't finish over the top with the post-up move. He doesn't have a 15-foot shot going for him. Everyone's saying that he's playing so good, but any pro that could take more than 20 shots can get 20-something points.
Right.
That's just how it is. So I don't want to hear this talk about LeBron being the king. I'm a big Kobe fan. Kobe wouldn't let this go down like this. He would fight his way to a win if he had to. I think LeBron and them guys gave up at the end. They tried, but I don't think they were really focused, and I think they need to just put Deion Waiters in. He's a baller, and he'll get some buckets. He'll get some shots up. He's not afraid of the moment, the big moment, and they need to try that out and see how that works out for him. But I think LeBron and AD really need to be more aggressive and just attack this game and get these guys out of here and stop fooling around. It's not Hollywood. It's real basketball now. Jay-Z and Rihanna ain't showing up, so they got to play and get to the next round.
There you go. Appreciate the call.
I mean, at what point do we start saying, maybe LeBron doesn't have that second gear? Maybe at this point in his career, what you got last night, which was still a really good game. Statistically, he was awesome.
But 23 points on 20 shots isn't that great.
I know, but
it really isn't. I know that the stat line, the triple-double, you can, drool over it and say, oh, he put in this magnificent night. It wasn't impactful, though.
Right.
It just wasn't.
And that's why this whole, LeBron's got to be more aggressive. Dude put up 20 shots. I mean, like this, maybe this is just what it is. And it doesn't mean that it's not good, but it's not the same as him taking over that Game 6 at Boston when he was a member of the Heat back in 2012, I want to say it was. He doesn't maybe have that anymore. So with that being said, at what point do we just start to take a step back and go, yeah, this is the descent. I mean, like we see it in other sports. Peyton Manning was rapid descent. Maybe LeBron's going to take a more gradual descent from where he was at the top of his game.
That could be the case.